This show is supported by you. Stick around till the ad break to hear more. This is Cup of Go for July 19th, 2024. Keep up to date with the important happenings in the Go community in about 15 minutes per week. I'm Shai Ahmad.
And I'm Jonathan Hall.
Welcome to Release Candidate 2.
Yay!
Go 1 to 3 is moving forward. As usually happens in these sort of times, we're a bit less focused on new proposals and new things. And everybody's just trying to fix every tiny little bug or typo to make sure that the release is great. So obviously we don't have proposal news for you this week, but I do think it's interesting. You know, we're talking about the release candidates. So release candidates, you know, as they move forward in maturity, release candidate 2 should be even more stable for you to play around with. And I found a way. You can go into go-review Google Source com, where all the code reviews are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a specific merge list you can take a look at that shows what went into the release branch, what went into Go 1 to 3. So there's like 70 fixes here.
Between RC1 and RC2, you mean, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of them is Jonathan's fix.
Whoa. What did I fix?
A typo in a comment.
Okay. Sounds like the kind of thing I might do.
So in database SQL driver, actually, now that you're the contributor, do you say SQL? That's settled out.
I don't say it out loud. It's a word that I will not speak. I only type it.
It's an ancient language. Anyway, there are a lot of fixes here, which when I opened this patch set, I was very surprised. I was sure like, oh, it's just 1 or 2 tiny things. But I think many of them are more close to your change, like fix comments and improve error messages and very, very small edge cases, you know, looking at just the commit messages here, right? Make struct comments match struct names. Clarify that is not exist, is permission, and is timeout work with nil errors. Some things like that. And there are some actual fixes as well, right? Avoiding multiple records with identical stacks from mutex profile, for example. So if you're trying to run mutex profiling, it will deduplicate, you know, records and things like that. But I think a lot of them are like fix a small comment, update help messages, adding some to-dos, documenting some stuff, omitting errors, like very small but very important fixes to making sure that this is highly polished. So at this point, I think it's a good time to get your company, you know, at least put on the backlog to migrate. And if you can, you know, run your CI pipelines with this new version and report bugs, that would obviously help the community a ton, right?
Mm-hmm. So are you doing that, Shai? Are you running RC2 in CI?
No.
Oh.
Not yet, but I will. I definitely will. We're working on centralizing CI workflows right now at work. We're setting up a Backstage, right? Spotify Backstage to like maintain all this self-serve stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to move some workflows there, and then I'll do it. We actually have a small Go script in the Backstage implementation. So I might do it there because that's very low stakes.
Cool. I installed RC1 on my local machine yesterday, or 2 days ago, actually. Which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And I have RC2 running in CI on one of my projects.
And how's it working?
No problem so far.
Damn.
Well, I should say, actually, it causes Golang CI lint to crash.
What?
So Golang CI lint needs to be updated. I don't know what it is, but it crashes when I'm running either RC1 or RC2.
All right. So report the bugs to the relevant teams to make sure that when the full release is out, right, everybody can enjoy it.
That's right.
What are you doing on October 19th?
It's a good question. I'll probably be either in Guatemala City or in Atlanta looking for a new house. I'm not sure yet which.
You'll also be celebrating my birthday.
I'll also be celebrating your birthday, but unfortunately I will not be in Nairobi with all these other beautiful, wonderful gophers who are attending the first ever GopherCon Africa.
Woohoo!
So the venue has not yet been announced. So stay tuned or subscribe. Go to their website, nairobi.gophers.africa, and sign up to be notified, I guess.
They're open for speakers.
Yeah. CFP closed just a couple days ago. I think it closed on the day I learned of the conference. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, it's too late to be a speaker this year, but maybe next year. You can still go and meet all the wonderful gophers, October 18 and 19, at a TBD venue in Nairobi.
I love the pricing where you have the regular ticket, corporate ticket, which is slightly more expensive, but also student ticket. So if you're a student and you have a student identification card, you get in a half price, which is really good. Students can really use both the lectures and the networking. Mm-hmm. So getting in their half price, I think, is a good investment. So 18th, 19th October in Nairobi, Kenya.
And since you didn't bring it up, I'm going to. I like their logo, their little mascot, their Gopher Warrior mascot.
Oh, I haven't even noticed. Oh, it is cute. I don't remember what was it's holding up the traditional vertical shield. That's pretty cool. Although I'm not used to seeing gophers, holding up armaments. Usually they're like, drinking coffee.
I kind of like the juxtaposition between this cute, fuzzy, adorable animal and warrior gear.
Yeah. So Nairobi, October 18th, 19th. Very cool. So like we said, not a lot of proposals this week. So we found a few interesting blog posts and just topics for discussion that people have been talking about. And the first one was from Reddit. I think it came up 2 weeks ago. Does Go benefit more from Copilot than other languages? And I'm going to pull a Jonathan here and attack the premise of the question first, like Jonathan is doing to many, many people on LinkedIn now and then.
I would never. I reject the premise of your statement.
I think you're doing your work trolling enough people on LinkedIn to keep it honest, right? Which is a great service for the rest of us. But my first thought is, why does it matter? Why does it matter if Go is super well fitted to LLMs or doesn't work well with it at all?
Well, I suppose it matters if you're trying to leverage an LLM to do your coding, to help with your coding. Harvey, go downstairs.
Hello, Harvey. So, back from that break, Jonathan has to take care of his kid. We actually got a mention on Slack. I don't remember. This is a tangent, but someone was like, oh, it's good that you're normalizing being with your kid while you're at work. And it's yeah, this is a fun thing we do. This is not a huge, super important corporate board meeting. Our kids can come and bother us every now and then.
Of course.
They're cute. Jonathan's kids are cute, and my kid is cuter. And it's just
yeah. I reject the premise of your statement.
So let's go back to Copilot, LLMs, right? Why does it matter that Copilot is more useful in language X than language Y?
All right. So answering the question, I think it might matter if you're trying to get full leverage out of your LLM, but and this is probably where you're going. That shouldn't be the deciding factor when you're choosing a language, right? I mean, you use the language that's best suited for the job, and maybe that could be one small part of that, the decision matrix, but it shouldn't be the main thing.
So I think it's the same way that does Go have, Go's LSP is pretty good, right? It's pretty fast and it has a lot of features, extract method and whatever. It certainly has more tools than some other languages you could think about, right? Maybe some really new languages or maybe really old languages that don't have great tooling. It's a lot easier to refactor in Go than it is to refactor in assembly or C, right? I think this question is sort of going towards that, how good is the tooling? And if we generalize to, does Go have good tooling? I feel pretty comfortable answering that Go has one of the best tooling lineups for any programming languages you might choose. Comes built, the testing tool comes built in with fuzzing and race detection and whatever. I think it's a very productive language. Not a lot of people will argue that, against that. Specifically, it is interesting technically to nerd out about why it has good LLM support as well, maybe better than some other languages. What's your instinct on that? Should it have a better LLM support than other languages or not?
I think it depends on how you define better. I think in general, an LLM is going to benefit the most from whatever language has the most input available. or to be even more specific, most input that you want to replicate. If you have tons and tons of, say, I'll just pick a random language, let's say Lua, tons and tons of Lua, but it's all really bad code, then you're going to have a bad experience with your LLM. So how does that affect Go? I think that Go's a relatively young language, at least in terms of popularity. So there's less code than there is, say, Java or JavaScript, PHP out there. It's more often a professional language than, say, a student language. So you're not going to get people's homework assignments as much, influencing the outputs as you would if it was, say, JavaScript or C++ or Java or whatever they study in universities these days. And so, maybe in that sense, the sort of the bell curve of what you expect to get out is closer to the end of high quality. But I don't think those are particularly features of the language. It's more about how is the language used, and do you want to use a copilot that's trained on that data?
So surprisingly, there are some features of the language that impact how good the LLM is.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have to do with the input data, like you said. I learned about this from Natalie Pistonovich from GoTime. So in the latest GopherCon Israel, which was about a year ago, and the next GopherCon Israel is coming up now. Or maybe it was 2 years ago? No, that's not possible. Never mind. She had a lecture about Go and AI and why Go is a good fit for AI. And there are a few interesting features when you compare it to other languages. For example, Python in the standard is a white space-based language, right? It has a lot of white space, but the white space itself is usually spaces. You'll have 4 spaces. Mm-hmm. Go has uniform formatting, right? Which is great for training because all the code looks the same. So when you autocomplete, when you're looking for things, you're finding things that are similar semantically, and you don't worry about formatting because all code is formatted the same, GoFMT. Also, it's formatted with tabs, so it's less tokens. It is physically less input, so you get a bigger context window for your LLM.
And we don't have all those pesky semicolons and braces to get to take up token space either.
Totally. Although I've seen recently new research from, I think, Facebook, like Meta, about they're building specialized LLMs that actually read the language, get an AST and then do the prediction on the AST to get rid of all that noise. So I assume Copilot will get at least experimental support for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Go is very uniform in its format and its styling. All the things kind of look the same. So it's a good fit for LLMs. And I also think that a rich standard library helps it as well. And funnily enough, choosing tabs over spaces for the white space formatting was a good benefit as well. On Reddit, this was a pretty interesting discussion where people brought up some other things as well, and the first one is Natalie's lecture. So you don't have like you said, it's a relatively young language. That's also a benefit because you don't have a lot of deprecated versions. We don't have Python 2 equivalent of Go, right? Where you can just autocomplete code that doesn't really work. So it's going to suggest code that's pretty well written, pretty young, and formatted the same way you want. And people overall say that they like using Copilot or LLMs, especially in unit tests. It saves them a lot of time. So the qualitative feedback is also pretty good, at least from this thread, right? They're saying it's amazing. I don't have to generate functions anymore. It's really intelligent, especially in Golang.
I don't find that to be true. I do use it, but I find it most useful when I'm doing something very, very repetitive. Otherwise, and even then, it makes a lot of mistakes. So I don't trust Copilot at all.
So
I always verify whatever it gives me.
Yeah, there is this feedback here as well, right? Someone says Copilot is expletive for Golang. I turned mine off. The code it generates is spectacularly subpar, and some people have concerns about it as well. But I think this is again the general discussions around LLM, right? Oh, maybe use Claude Sonnet instead of OpenAI. Maybe use this instead of that. Blah blah blah.
So, which LLM do you use? Let us know on our Slack channel.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it's just the one between your shoulders, that's cool too.
So, does Go benefit more from Copilot than other languages? We reject the premise of the question. Doesn't really matter. Also, Copilots are bad. Also, tabs are better than spaces.
Also, what are these range iterators?
I don't know. My Copilot isn't suggesting them yet because there isn't enough data, so I'll never know.
Do you find these new range iterators to be kind of mystifying too?
Well, if only someone would demystify them for me.
If only they... Oh, hey, I see this post from Zach Musgrave. It claims it's going to demystify them for us. So we should read it.
Well, how about you explain it for me in this audio format? Because that seems kind of like a useful use of my time.
So we all know that Go 123 is coming out with the new Range-over-func, right? We've talked about it on the show before.
A million.
We talked about it even a year ago. The proposal was written just over a year ago this week. So we talked about it. If you don't know what we're talking about, listen to the past episodes. Stop living under a Go rock. You can create a specially formed function with a particular signature, and the range keyword will iterate over it. That's the TLDR.
And you've been playing around with it this week a lot.
I have, yeah. So I was curious, in large part due to a conversation on our Slack channel, the GopherCon Slack channel, with some listeners, like, how would this work? I have a library where I think it would be a perfect fit. So I decided I had some spare time a couple days ago. I give it a shot, and I pulled up this post. There's an 8-minute read from Zach, and of course I skipped through 80% of it
to get to the code. Right,
I went straight to the example code and just plagiarized it blatantly. But the TLDR, actually, so I wrote my own post as well, which links back to this one. Just talking about my own experience with the range iterators. My TLDR is I love them now. And most of my fears about how complex they were and the bad naming were totally overblown. Yes, the proposal itself is complicated to understand, but that's because there's so much going on behind the scenes that you don't have to care about either as the consumer of an iterator or the author of an iterator. It's really easy to use. That's my TLDR.
Cool. I was really worried about the new keyword. Right?
Yeah, I was too.
But now you say it's fine?
There is no new keyword.
What do you mean? You
There's
can
no
say
keyword.
Yield now. It's like Python.
I thought there was new keyword, but if you look really closely, that's just the name of a function. That's a callback. Yeah, that's when the light bulb went on for me too. It was like, oh, it's just a function. I can call it whatever I want. Yield makes maybe sense contextually, but yeah, I was so concerned that this would not compile with old versions of Go. It does. I am building my iterators in Go 1.17 before generics even existed, and they compile just fine. They're not useful there. Don't get me wrong. You can't just magically iterate over those functions, but they compile.
And there was one interesting, we always loved to hate on the name Seek2, right? And I think you sort of had a discussion around the naming as well. Can you name it whatever you want? Should you name it Seek2 as well?
Yeah. So one of the points in my post was, as I did this exercise of building 5 different iterators for my project, I never once had to write Seek or Seek2. So like, fine then. I don't care what you call it then. Call it whatever you want. However, there are cases. If you're writing an iterator that iterates over an iterator, for example, then you will need to use that name. So it's not that the name completely doesn't matter, but it's much less important than I initially thought. You may also want your function to return that type. I don't do that because I want my code to compile for old versions of Go. But as a documentation or a type safety check, you might actually want to return iter.seek or iter.seek2, for example. I still take slight issue with the name. I think they should have called it Seek1 and Seek2 since it refers to the number of arguments being returned. I think that would have been more clear. I think Seek and Seek2 just looks asymmetric, but it's really a very minor thing. It's not nearly as big of an issue as I think you and I thought it might be when we were complaining about it on the show before.
So that's exactly the thing, right? Talk is cheap, but action is expensive. We talked about how hard using range generators and the name and blah, blah, blah for over an hour. And your proof of concept was already in under an hour.
Yeah.
So just a word of warning to anybody here that listens to us too carefully. It's like, oh, they said on the podcast, blah, blah, blah. So saying is easy, but the fact that Jonathan actually wrote the blog post and actually migrated his whatever CouchDB open source thing, right? Kivik.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That matters a whole lot more, which is why we try to highlight people that, write the blog posts and write the proposals, and our opinions on it should be a very small part of what you get out of this show.
Yeah, we don't know what we're talking about. We're just a bunch of doofuses who like to talk about Go.
Totally. All right. I think it's time for our lightning round, right?
Oh, yes. I love that.
All right. Lightning round. First thing we want to recommend is Dreams of Code, new video. This CLI component was trickier to build than I thought. They built in a 17-minute, super storytelling, beautifully shot video, a small CLI loader thing in Go. And it really goes to the details of, you need to delete, you need to fix all the bugs. They also developed it pretty well, I think, with TDD and things like that. So some pretty interesting things to learn. And a beautiful setup with amazing keyboards and buttons and things like that, which I like. So go give that a watch. Really good YouTube content if you're into learning from videos as well.
And up on my list, introducing Quartz, a deterministic time testing library for Go by Spike Curtis. What a great name.
Mm-hmm.
So Spike decided that he doesn't like flicky tests, and I was sold. Opening line, I hate flicky tests. I'm there. The premise of this package is to make it easier to test code that depends on intricate timing. So if you're testing a ticker or context cancellations or things like that, where timing is critical, I know I have code that does this, and even when I use long timeouts, 1 second or whatever, occasionally it fails in CI when something's going slow. This should solve that problem. I haven't used it yet, but I intend to try this library next time I'm writing a timing sensitive test. Link in the description. Quartz is the name of the library. Check it out.
We should tell Dreams of Code about Quartz. It would improve their tests as well. Finally on my list, a new release for OV. OV is a terminal text viewer written in Go. Basically, it's like less or more or like watch or tail. It just has a ton of features and colors and is going to spruce up your terminal real nice, which will make your, you writing a single word and waiting for your LLM to autocomplete it look really, really cool, Mr. Robot style. So OV has a new release. If you haven't installed it on your terminal yet, you can go ahead and do that now. And that does it for our lightning round. Boom.
That was fast.
Stick around for the ad break to hear some meta stuff. Welcome to our ad break. Thanks a lot for people who sort of volunteered to co-host towards the end of the summer, where we're planning to take some time off on our Slack channel. So we'll definitely reach out to you soon and try to set that up. Thanks a lot. It's really cool. If you do want to join that list as well, just let us know on Slack and we'll reach out to you. It's not that complicated. We're not that big of an operation. We're just two dudes who don't really know what they're talking about.
We are giving preference to those who have not co-hosted before. So don't be insulted if we don't reach out to you if you've already been a co-host.
Yep.
We love you and we're so glad you were a co-host, but we want to share the opportunity.
So if you do want to reach us, cupago.dev has all the links you need. Links to stuff like past episodes, transcriptions, our email, news@cupago.dev, our Slack channel, #cup-o-go on the Gopher Slack, our swag store where you can buy hoodies, shirts. The hoodie, by the way, I was doubtful, but I got some for DevOps Days in Amsterdam because Amsterdam's cold when I went to meet Jonathan. And I have used it more than once. It's very comfortable. So where I work, Orca, we have one AC Tyrant. Mm-hmm. Do you have one of these as well? Like someone who just blasts it on 16?
I work from home.
Do you blast the AC at home?
When I want to. And I don't want to. Yeah.
I don't have a choice. And I'm sitting right under the AC. So I brought the hoodie and it now lives on my chair at the office, which is really nice because nobody steals my chair as well. So here, hey, another use for it. You can use the hoodie to mark territory. Anyway, you can buy some swag on cupago.dev. If you want to support the show, the best way to support it is through Patreon. Thanks a lot to all our Patreon supporters who try to make this hobby a bit more sustainable. We do this for fun, but it does cost us a bit of money to edit the show. We have a professional editor. Shout out Filippo for editing our words and, for hosting and things like that. Joining as a member on Patreon is the most direct way to support the show. If you want to support other ways, you can leave a review or share the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We don't pay to advertise, so word of mouth is basically the only way this show gets around. This show gets around sounds bad.
This show goes around.
That's better.
Around. There we go.
where else can you mention or talk about the show? So we talked about like professional reviews on the apps.
So if you want something a little lower key, a little easier to do, if you're a social media person, follow us on Twitter, or dare I say X, whatever. We currently have 449 followers on Twitter. Cup_O_go is the handle. If you're more of a Fediverse person, I'll just say it that way. That's pretty factual without throwing value statements into it. We're also on Mastodon, Cup_go at techhub.social, where we currently have 72 followers. And I also just had to look up our YouTube channel, and I was surprised to see we have 214 subscribers on YouTube, and people are actually consuming the show there. We have had 30 hours of, quote, watch time on YouTube in the last month.
So I think it's because Google Podcast died, right? They killed it. Killed by Google. Hashtag killed by Google. Maybe people who listen to podcasts using Google Podcasts have now transitioned to using YouTube Music, and then they count the views that way. But hey, if you like using these apps and it's easier for you to listen to the show there, we're very happy to like have you serve you there. So yeah, if you're, I'm rarely logging into social media, just trying to lower that in my life. But if you are listening to the show and you like have Twitter open right now, maybe just shout us out. Having more people listen is really fun for us.
Yeah, and when you see if you follow us, when you see the thing come by in your feed, just hit that heart button, hit the reshare, and it helps spread the word.
Awesome. So thanks a lot for listening this week, everyone. Next week, hopefully we'll have an interview. We'll finally get back on that horse. Really trying to schedule that.
We've been trying, and it's been a bit difficult. Everyone else is on holiday during the summer too, so it's a little bit hard to schedule during the summertime. But we'll
holiday
get back on the horse.
With the kids, like Jonathan just demonstrated, etc., etc. That's it for this week. Program exited. Goodbye.
Program exited. Goodbye.